Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. In this episode, I'm going to talk about something a little serious, right? And this is about how to access your life. Talking about all the different things that interfere with your life, you being able to live your best life, things cutting you off from your best life, whether you know it or not. You know what I'm saying? And I just want to get into that, right? Because I've been thinking about that a lot and thinking about the things that happen to you in prison and even before you come to prison. And this has a lot to do with a lot of people out there that might be feeling like, they just can't seem to get ahead in any way, shape, or form, right? So I'm going to be talking about that a little bit. And I hope that you learn something from this because, again, my intentions are to teach with this one, y'all. Sit back and relax, y'all, and enjoy this show. Accessing your life, right, especially in prison, is difficult because you're cut off from everything that you know. The way you used to live, the way, being able to talk on the phone when you want to, being able to access and use a computer when you want to, uh, not being able to hug and kiss your loved ones the way that you would want to, just being familiar with somebody in a way that wasn't threatening or manipulative in the way that most things in here are. And it got me to thinking about how, barriers are put in place to prevent you from being able to access your life. And I don't think a lot of people even think about it like that. But like I said, in here, we're not allowed to have or use cell phones. Uh, we're not allowed. We got the phones on the wall, right? The state phones, though. We can use that, but those phone calls are monitored. We're not allowed to use computers. In most cases, we're not even allowed to look at a computer. Believe that, y'all. There's a whole lot of things that prevent us from being able to access life. And that's what prison is about. Prison is about cutting you off from being able to access and participate in what it means to be part of the human race. It just cuts you all the way off from that. And that is the punishment. Everything else in here that goes on, it makes the situation worse for you. You're already suffering a trauma that is self-inflicted, but I'm going to get into that too. But it keeps you from being able to participate and make reasonable, rational decisions based off of sound judgment. When you make decisions based off of traumatic experiences, those decisions are not sound, rational decisions. Your whole reasoning process has been corrupted. It's like a virus. Trauma is like a virus. When you suffer a traumatic experience, anxiety, depression, PTSD, any of those things related to mental health issues, it's like a virus. So any reasoning that could come from that is skewed. And when you've been cut off from being able to participate in life, you can't even see or realize or come to realize what has happened to you, the trauma that you've suffered. So when you think about it, like on the streets, right? Because a lot of you that's listening to the show are out there, right? So let me give you some examples of how sometimes you may be prevented from accessing your life out there, so you can relate to what I'm talking about in here, okay? And this is for adults and kids. Some of these examples. Racism. If you're experiencing racism, right, out there, whether it be when you go to the bank to get a loan, when you're trying to buy a house, buy a car, just being in a grocery store, or just being harassed by the police, right? Those things that are happening to you are trying to prevent you from getting outside of this box that's been developed for you and me so that you won't be able to access your best life. Why is that important? Because these things cause you to suffer traumatic experiences. Growing up in a bad neighborhood is another example, where you got a lot of poverty, where you got a lot of lack of opportunities, educational and employment, right? These things cause you, whether you want to accept it or not, to suffer traumatic experiences, right? These are traumatic experiences that cause you to suffer maybe depression, anxiety, and so on and so forth. But these things are viruses that interfere with you being able to reason in a way to understand what's going on. And you don't have to be aware that these things are in place. You're dealing with them regardless. You grow up in a bad neighborhood, you might not be able to break down how this happened. How because of certain zoning rules and things of that nature, the part of town that you live in has been cut off by some interstate that interfere with all the black businesses, black and brown businesses that might have been on that side of town. Now all of a sudden this side of town that was once thriving is impoverished. You're going to schools where the school books are not adequate, or you're going to school and you're being taught by teachers that can't relate to you, that as soon as you do something, here they come with a zero tolerance policy that limits you, puts you in an alternative school. These things are causing you to suffer traumatic experiences, anxieties. These things are limiting you from being able to access your best life. You understand what I'm saying? So whether you're an adult or a juvenile and these things are happening to you, whether you know them or not, you're being limited to be able to access your best life. Right? So what do you do about that? What do you do about that? Because I talk to a lot of guys in here that go through those types of things. Because I go through those types of things in here. I've been through those types of things that I'm talking about out there. I didn't realize at the time what it was that I was experiencing. I had no understanding of it. It doesn't matter if you have an understanding of it. The result is still the same. It interferes with your process to be able to reason in a way that is where you'll come on the other side of it and make a good decision. How is it that you can be expected to make a good decision when you are thinking in a skewed way as a result of all of the trauma that you've been through? Bad relationship, husband, wife, whomever beating on the other, or both. Having multiple relationships, running around doing all types of things. These things didn't just happen in a vacuum. These things didn't just happen in a vacuum. What happened in your life to make you see the world that way? What shaped your world view that says it's okay for you to have multiple women with multiple kids, that you don't take care of any of them? And you think this is okay, you think this is cool. No, you don't even understand what happened to you to understand that your reasoning, your logic is off. You have suffered some type of break with reality that makes you think that is cool, and you see people around you, and then you pass that on to your kids. You pass that on to the people that look up to you. And it is no different when you have a woman, a young woman, or a middle-aged woman that's very promiscuous. What shaped that for you? That you see that as being okay to the extent that you continue to do it even though it brings you harm. You've suffered some traumatic event. You've suffered some traumatic event that skews you from being able to reason in a way that you come back with a righteous decision, that you make a decision that's based on you being a virtuous person and the outcome for the individual that you may be dealing with, that person is enhanced. That's the hard part about all of this, being able to access your life after you've been through some traumatic event. But don't get it twisted. We all go through something, but we all respond differently to it. That's the thing. Some of us go to the extent where we end up in prison because we harmed others. Some of us don't go, most of us don't go to prison, but we still create the same amount of harm to people. Right? Can you agree with that? So what is it that's being put in place to prevent us from living and accessing life, our best life? Think about those things that would make you feel that a certain behavior that you might be participating in is okay. And then you got your answer. Then you ask yourself, where'd that come from? Ask yourself where that came from. And when you do that, then you're going to be ahead of the game. That's one of the things that we don't do. We don't access that part of our brain to where we want to know why we feel the way we do about certain situations. If something bothers you, ask yourself, why does it bother you? If you feel that you can't tell the truth in certain situations or any situation, ask yourself, why is that? Where did that come from? If you feel like you can't be faithful in a relationship, ask yourself why. Where did that come from? And go on that journey to discover that. Because until you do that, you're not going to be able to access your best life. And I know it may be weird that a person that's in prison is giving you that advice. But I'm giving you that advice because I have been through what I'm talking about to you. I have experienced things in my life that shaped my worldview and made me believe that the best solution for my problems was to cause harm to another human being. And that was wrong. So I know what I'm talking about here. I know what I'm talking about. Love is not about manipulation and deceit, using somebody. Love is about giving all of you. Giving all of you to someone else without expecting anything back. Don't expect it, just give it because it makes you feel good. It makes me feel good to love. I love all of y'all. I do. I love all of y'all. You don't know how good it makes me feel sometimes to hear or read or be told some of the comments that you leave me. I find myself sometimes getting emotional just knowing that someone would take the time to type out a message or to type out those little emojis that you do. You know what I'm saying? Telling me that, good job, Joe, or Joe, check your volume, Joe, and all of that old kind of stuff. I love all of that. It makes me laugh when I hear that. It's like, yeah, I'll do that. And I've gotten to the point to where I don't get to respond and stuff like that like I would like to, but when I can, I do, or I do it through somebody else. But I'm looking at the names, and I remember the names of some of the people that leave me comments because it's like it's important for me to know all of you, and for you to know how much I appreciate you. Because I've learned to access my best life. And in spite of those obstacles that stand in my way, I don't want to be the type of person that can't love, that can't feel, that can't relate to somebody else's pain. I don't want to ever be that person. But if I go down that path that has been laid for me, now this is important, listen to me now. If I go down that path that has been laid for me, then the outcome for me is going to be bitterness, pain, hurt, anger, all of those things. How do I know that? Because I was walking that path before. A path was created for me that I was walking down, not realizing that this is the trap. This is how they want me to feel. This is how they want me to think. No, I will not. I will not. So when you're faced with an issue, somebody mistreating you, when you're faced with an issue of somebody denying you, don't receive that. Overcome that. How do you overcome that? Some people say a quick prayer. Some people rebuke. You understand what I'm saying? In the name of the Most High. Whatever it is that you have to do, don't you let that anger and that bitterness set in you. Don't you do it. That person that you're dealing with that might be doing that to you, they are suffering from something and they don't even know it and trying to pass on to you what's in them. That's the devil trying to put into you what's in them. They're being used. Don't even know it. And don't you go for it. Don't you fall for that. Hate begets hate. Don't fall for it, y'all. Don't fall for it. I'm telling you now. Don't fall for it. Love wins every time, y'all. Y'all know what's going on. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.